Welcome to another episode of Wealth Beyond Numbers. I'm your host, Dennis Coral, and we're staying here with Deirdre Nero, and we're going to talk about trends in immigration. Deirdre, many of our clients come to the United States looking for a better future for themselves and their family. They want to create wealth. They want to start businesses. A lot of our clientele and the clients that we help are business owners. And when they come from other countries, they're learning how things have to be done in the United States. There's a lot of challenges that they face. And there's also things that change every time there's a new administration that takes over. As you know, there's a lot of changes that have happened in immigration. So I wanted to know if you could please share some of the new trends or things that have changed this year or in regards to immigration that affects business owners, that affect individuals building wealth in this country.
So I think from the perspective of business owners, there's a lot right now that is going on. So much so that it's been a challenge just to keep up with it. We feel like we're drinking out of a fire hose, so to speak, because it's just like so much information all the time. But, you know, that's also why you need professionals like myself so that you can kind of drill down on what news is actually, number one, like reliable news, but also like, why does it matter? You know, what's actually happening, you know, because everything you read in the news is not necessarily the whole picture, right? So it's been a lot. It's been interesting. But I think in terms of like from the perspective of the business owner, the main thing that we're looking at now is twofold. One is to be prepared for enforcement against your business. And that can mean a variety of things. It can mean something as scary as a raid, where they don't actually call it a raid, but you know that's like what we refer to it as. It's called the workforce enforcement action, where officers will actually come to a business with a warrant, looking for individuals that they intend to arrest. And that can be really scary for a business owner, but it can also jeopardize the workforce, right? And so that can have a lot of implications to clients, be it just losing important people, but also maybe not meeting contractual deadlines on work that they are trying to produce because now they're losing workforce. So that is a scary thing that we're dealing with a lot with businesses. I've actually been doing a lot of presentations and like educational seminars and information out there for business owners, like what to do if ICE comes to your business. Because even though I can't, in let's say an hour and a half seminar, tell them everything that they would need to do, I can at least enforcement that.
And what are some of those things that they can do? For example?
One of the things is getting educated as to the different types of visits you might get. So it's not always a raid. Maybe they're coming to serve what's called a notice of inspection for an I-9 audit. An I-9 is a form that every employer has to fill out on their employees and get the employee to fill out and then also verify their work information within the first 3 days that the person is working for them. Any employee, right? So it doesn't matter if the person's a U.S. citizen or a foreign national. Every single person that you're onboarding into your company needs to fill out one of these forms, which is an official government form, an official immigration form, which a lot of people don't realize that it's an immigration form, and not just like a tax form or
right,
another form, right? So it is actually an immigration form. And not only do you have to fill out the basic information of the employee and the employer and when they started work and all of that, but then the employee is tasked with producing a document that verifies their identity primarily, and then secondarily their authorization to work in the United States. And the employers actually have to inspect the document and verify that they checked it. And, you know, it's a big procedure, right? And those documents are then held by the employer in a way that is compliant with the law, which again is another pitfall that employers sometimes don't retain them properly. But you don't actually send that form into the government. You don't file it with a government office. You retain it. And so a lot of, by virtue of the fact that you're not like, oh, I got to send this off to the government and file it, a lot of employers get complacent because they're like, well, I'm just going to file it away in a drawer. Like, who cares about that type of thing? But the thing is that if you get visited by ICE, they're going to basically serve you with the for a company, penalties that are intense, right? Where, like, especially for smaller businesses, could potentially put them out of business. So knowing how to set yourself up in a way, and this goes to like the whole planning aspect that you're so keen on, right? Which is not the same type of planning, but just planning in advance so that you're setting yourself up to be in the best position possible. Are you ever going to be able to avoid like any penalties at all where you're coming out crystal clean and they're like, you owe $0, you're not in any trouble? Probably not, They get pretty nitpicky on this stuff, but you can definitely set your business up in a way that it is not that bad, if it does happen. People are like, like whatever, we'll do that another day, or that's not going to happen to us. Right. We don't want to throw money at, for example, an internal audit and training, because we're not going to get in trouble.
Right.
And then when it happens, they're completely caught off guard, and it's just a total nightmare.
We always
and that can be really bad for a business.
Yeah, I can imagine. We always say in our practice, failing to plan is planning to fail.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's why I was like, I know he understands this concept well.
It costs money to repair things. It's the same way when I always, when we're coaching of people own small businesses and mid-sized businesses, and they may not even be aware of those I-9. And you talked about them. I know you for a while, so you always
I'm always talking about that because I'm trying to like give my public service to the world of like you need to get educated on this stuff because it can be really bad. Absolutely. Now the reason I'm talking about this in the trending section of our podcast is during the first Trump administration, this was like very hot. And that's when I kind of started to get really into this area of immigration law, because this is like a different kind of immigration law. Like we're used to helping people apply for visas and green cards and citizenships and all of the stuff that I talked about in our other segment. which is like the happy stuff. This is kind of like more on the like defensive posturing, or maybe even they're in trouble and you're trying to help them negotiate or get their way out of trouble if they do get audited or raided, God forbid. So it's kind of like a different type of thing that I never was really that well educated on. And then at the start of the first Trump administration, I kind of saw, wow, this is like a huge gap in knowledge in this certain sector of like small to medium companies, especially in South Florida. It's like way worse, because people are totally like doing stuff like by the seat of their pants. They're not following any of the rules. That tends to be like an epidemic down here a little bit. So we were like, wow, this is really intense. And so that's when I started ramping up this area of my practice. And then the pandemic came, and then the Biden administration came, and it kind of like really didn't go away completely, but it really
died down a lot.
And then as soon as the Trump administration came back the second time, it started to ramp up again. And now we're seeing that it's getting like intense. Like this is a thing that I'm telling business owners now. It's not if you're going to get visited by ICE, it's when. I see. Now, in this current environment, it might not always be that way, but what we're looking at now, and especially after they passed the bill that gave a lot of funding to ICE, a lot of that funding is going to be going towards these types of worksite enforcement actions. The government is really, it's not that the government is trying to go after businesses. Trump is a business guy.
Correct.
Right? That's not the idea. But the idea is people who are here unlawfully are a lot of times trying to work and look for that opportunity. And so they're almost trying to target like, well, without the opportunity for work,
why you're here,
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword where you're hurting not just like the immigrants that may or may not be authorized to work but still working, but also the companies are getting into a bad situation. And down here we have an extra layer to this whole thing, which is that because of where we are in the country and the demographics, there are a large amount of workers down here that have been on temporary parole or protected either a parole program or a protected status, that are now either have already lost their working authorization or are probably going to lose their working authorization within the next couple of months. And while that is terrible for the individual, and we're trying to find solutions for some of these people to maybe transition into something else, for the employer, it's really scary. Because not only are they losing a lot of talent and a lot of manpower and workforce, number one, but number two, putting the employer in like a really weird position where a lot of times they don't even know.
And it affects morale.
Because they're not even maybe up on the changes to the law. Right. So they don't even know that this person that presented me with a work permit that's completely valid, a great work permit, has now been revoked if they were not following along with the policy changes. It facially, when you look at it and you look at the validity dates and everything, it's still valid, but it's been revoked. And so if the employer doesn't realize that, they're actually
in violation, like
without realizing, right? And so then you're relying on your employees to come forward on their own to tell you that their employment authorization's been revoked. I mean, they might do that, but if they really need that job to live and feed their family, they might not, right? So it's putting employers in a really precarious situation right now that is a little hard to navigate, and we've had to have some really uncomfortable situations with clients. But at the end of the day, like when I'm talking to a business owner and that's my potential client, like I need to give them advice on what's going to be best for their business, even though it might not be what they necessarily want to hear.
Yeah, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Exactly.
And I think that's important. That's one of the reasons why I really like you in your practice, because you tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And it's the same in what
I would love
do.
to tell them only happy things, but unfortunately that's not the nature of this business. It's not. I try to keep it real with people. I try to find solutions whenever I can. but I also want to be honest with people, and I don't want to give them false hope or misleaded, expectations. So I try to keep it, really honest with people and give them kind of like the truth of the situation.
Yeah.
Even if I know they're not going to like it.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. A lot of people don't know about this, but I had a nanny when I was married, when my son was born, and she was with us for 2 years. She had a green card, and she never applied for citizenship because it was too expensive for her to pay for that. So we end up paying it for her.
Good.
And
that's nice.
she did it. My son is now 11 years old, so this is 8 years ago, and now she can. She has a job. She used to work with us, and then she stopped working with us when she got her citizenship and moved to another job, and now she's gonna retire this year.
Good for her.
So she was able to build savings and wealth for herself and not have to deal with all these.
Well, she's lucky that she had you to help her.
Yes,
listen, I'm running a business too, so I'm in this to also, make a living. But I do volunteer with every year a citizenship clinic that we do basically free legal work for people that are trying to apply for citizenship but don't have the finances. And actually September is Citizenship Month, and so that's when we do it. So it's coming up, and myself, and this year I'm going to try to get some of my team members also involved in that, because I think it's really, we're going to dedicate 2 work days where we're not making money necessarily that day, and then probably 2 weekend days as well. So it's a commitment, but it's something that I feel really strongly about. So I like to give back in that way.
Yeah, that's very nice. And now, as you know, since we're staying on the topic of trends, AI is a big topic. Now, every podcast I do, we talked about AI, alternative intelligence, and Google, and how now people try to do things themselves. There's people out there that try to plan for retirement and their investments themselves, and sometimes they find themselves in a pickle because the emotions run. When you managing money, the emotions run. When you also the responsibility, when the stakes are high and you have a couple of $1 million that you have saved for retirement, for your future, that your family depends from you, you really want to look for a professional. You don't want to get your answers from ChatGPT or Google or something that your friend told you. Yeah. But that does happen, and I'm sure your practice,
so much.
You want to talk about
it
that?
Happens a lot in our business because people are under this misconception, which is like my pet peeve of life, that it's like, oh, I just fill out a form. I can download it on the immigration website, fill out this form and send it in. And I'm like, oh, because that's like the furthest thing from the truth. Immigration law is so complex. It's in complexity, it's second only to the tax code. And it's like crazy complex with not just like the way to do things right, but also like the way different things intersect with each other, and the rules are like overlapping, and one little misstep can cause someone to just completely like get everything denied, lose all that money, and then potentially even get removed from the United States, get barred from re-entering. There are really bad consequences to messing up these cases. And so, it's very high stakes. So it doesn't really make sense to try and do that thing on your own. And now, like, this is not a good, and I've actually like tried running scenarios through ChatGPT, and like, is it completely wrong? No, of course not. The I is for intelligence. Like, it's not completely wrong. But a lot of times it's missing the nuances and like some of the specific things that could go wrong. Or also, you got to remember with AI, like the output is only as good as what you're putting in. And so if you're a novice, I'm putting in a prompt that is very sophisticated because this is what I do for a living. Part of this, but where we're seeing it a lot in our business is way, I was like, I had like the light bulb moment where I was like, I need to get on board
Absolutely.
with this wave of the future, because if not, you're gonna basically,
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
gonna lose that race. You can't compete.
Yeah, I agree.
You can't.
You can Google or ChatGPT what's the performance of the S&P 500, and it's going to tell you right there, or the Nasdaq for the day. It's not going to create a personalized portfolio that's
Right.
really tailored to your
Exactly.
needs, to your at this given moment in your life. You could be 60, you could be 50, and you need something that's tailored to you, because your family dynamics are different than everybody else's. And the same goes in immigration.
Exactly the same. One fact can change, like, okay, so you have two cases that look like they're the same, and I get this all the time. Well, my friend did XYZ and he got his
these
thing, and and there's like one fact that's different that can change like the whole thing, because it's so fact specific with immigration, like very, very fact specific. So that's also part of it. Like everything is different. I think for the lawyers, a big thing too has been like, just, you can't feed information into like ChatGPT, for example, that is confidential,
True.
because it can use it and like learn off of it, and that is unethical. So we're very careful with how we use just like regular AI, like ChatGPT or like Gemini, or like things that are kind of out there for the public.
Right.
But these new things that I'm starting to consider using in my firm are like closed proprietary systems that you can feed confidential information into, because it's not going to use it to learn or be compromised in any way. So it's interesting. I'm not sure I actually understand how all that actually works, but you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
I get like the level that I guess I have to, I'm not a tech person, so, I'm trying to understand it the best that I can, because it's important that we all kind of.
Yes, and technology is changing. And with that, on that topic of facts, I want to kind of close this episode, because the next episode I'd like to really talk about the myths about immigration, because I think that's such a topic that is very interesting, and I'd like to just wrap it up. But thank you so much, Deirdre. You're sharing such a wealth of information and such an important topic nowadays. Most business owners need to know it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is Dennis Coral, founder of Coral Wealth Management, on another episode of Wealth Beyond Numbers. And like we like to say at Coral Wealth Management, financial and retirement planning confidence starts here. Thank you.